The U.S. military on Tuesday shot down an Iranian drone that approached the USS Abraham Lincoln in nearby waters, according to CENTCOM. The incident was first reported by Reuters and represents a significant development amid ongoing tensions between Washington and Tehran.
U.S. officials say the incident adds to tensions, according to Reuters. CENTCOM said an Iranian drone approached the carrier and was shot down. CENTCOM described the approach as aggressive while saying the drone's intent was unclear. CENTCOM said an F-35C from the carrier shot it down in self-defense and to protect the aircraft carrier and personnel on board, said Navy Captain Tim Hawkins, a spokesperson at the U.S. military's Central Command, according to the Reuters report. The statement frames the action as defensive rather than offensive. No American service members were harmed during the incident, and no U.S. equipment was damaged, Hawkins added, according to the Reuters report. Iran's UN mission declined to comment on the incident, according to Reuters, leaving Tehran's characterization of events unknown. CENTCOM described the approach as aggressive while saying the drone's intent was unclear, according to the official statement. The combination of terms reflects the ambiguity surrounding the incident while emphasizing the perceived threat level that prompted the response. CENTCOM said U.S. forces attempted de-escalatory steps before firing, according to the statement. This sequencing indicates an effort to avoid using force before determining it was necessary given the drone's continued approach. The drone was taken out before it could reach the carrier, according to the CENTCOM statement. The defensive action prevented any direct contact between the drone and the carrier strike group, according to the military's account. The incident came as diplomats sought to arrange nuclear talks between Iran and the United States, according to Reuters. The timing, just days ahead of planned U.S.-Iran talks, adds complexity to assessing the incident's significance and implications for ongoing diplomatic efforts. The incident comes at what officials describe as a highly sensitive moment. Washington has increased military deployments in the region, according to reporting, just days ahead of planned U.S.-Iran talks. While U.S. officials stress the shoot-down was defensive, the timing raises fresh concerns about miscalculation, according to various assessments of the situation. With warships already deployed and diplomacy hanging in the balance, the incident adds uncertainty to an already complex situation. International reporting, including Reuters, says talks in Turkey are being arranged, with Steve Witkoff and Abbas Araki named as the lead figures. The diplomatic track proceeds alongside military incidents, creating parallel dynamics that both sides must navigate. Whether the drone incident affects the timeline or prospects for negotiations remains to be seen. Both sides have reasons to continue diplomatic efforts despite military friction, but both also face domestic and strategic pressures that could complicate those efforts. The Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is the most visible part of U.S. military deployments in the Middle East, according to Reuters reporting on the regional posture. The carrier's presence represents significant American power projection capability in the region. Reuters reported the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group has arrived in the U.S. Central Command region. The carrier provides mobile air power and sea-based strike options according to defense reporting on carrier capabilities. The carrier's positioning serves both operational and signaling purposes. Its presence communicates American capability and resolve while providing assets for various contingencies should diplomatic efforts fail. The Wall Street Journal reports U.S. officials say more air defenses are needed before any strike to protect bases and partners. Those officials describe retaliation risk as a key constraint on timing and scale, according to the reporting. Separately from the naval incident, international reporting has described recent domestic tensions in Iran. Reuters and other outlets have reported on unrest and government response, describing the situation as among the more severe in recent decades. This domestic context shapes the broader U.S.-Iran relationship during the current period and provides background for diplomatic and military dynamics. However, details about the unrest vary by source and time frame. Iran's domestic situation remains tense, according to international reporting, though specific details vary by source. How internal pressures affect Iranian negotiating positions is difficult to assess from outside. The dual pressures of external military positioning and internal unrest create a complex environment for decision-making in Tehran. Iranian officials have characterized the unrest as foreign-backed, according to state media reporting. Oil futures prices rose more than $1 per barrel after news the drone was shot down, according to Reuters. The market reaction reflects concerns about potential escalation affecting energy supplies and regional stability. The Strait of Hormuz is a major global energy choke point, so any escalation in the region can rattle markets. The price movement indicates market sensitivity to US-Iran incidents during periods of elevated tension. Energy market reactions provide one measure of how incidents are perceived in terms of escalation risk. Significant price movements suggest market participants view events as potentially consequential for global energy supply. The economic dimension of US-Iran tensions affects calculations on multiple sides. Market reactions create pressure for de-escalation, while also highlighting the stakes of any conflict for the global economy. Separately, Iranian media aired comments from Ali Shamkhani, an advisor to Iran's leadership, warning retaliation could expand if the US attacks Iran, according to reporting on the Al Mayadeen broadcast. The interview conveyed strong messaging about Iranian response capabilities. The United States and Israel are not two separate forces. They are one military entity, Shamkhani said, according to the reported interview. The framing links any US action to potential Israeli consequences in Iranian strategic messaging. Shamkhani said that if Washington launches an attack on Iran's soil, Iran's retaliation would not stop at US targets. Israel would be hit as well, according to the Al Mayadeen interview. The statement frames any US attack as triggering broader regional response beyond American forces. These statements represent Iranian messaging about potential responses. Whether they reflect actual Iranian policy or serve primarily rhetorical and deterrence purposes cannot be determined from the statements alone. On the nuclear issue, Shamkhani suggested Iran might consider reducing enrichment from 60% to 20% on its own terms, according to the interview, an idea not confirmed by Iranian officials through formal channels. The comments came during the Al Mayadeen broadcast. The framing maintains Iran's stated red lines on the nuclear file, while suggesting flexibility on enrichment levels. However, this should be understood as one official's interview comments rather than confirmed Iranian policy. The IAEA has reported Iran's 60% stockpile is above 400 kilograms. Analysts warn that higher enrichment would raise proliferation concerns. The gap between US demands and Iranian positions on this issue represents a central challenge for any negotiations. Whether Shamkhani's comments about potential enrichment reduction represent a genuine negotiating signal or rhetorical positioning cannot be determined from the interview alone. The terms acceptable to both parties remain unclear as diplomatic efforts continue. Major General Sayed Abdolrahim Mousavi, identified in Iranian state reporting as Iran's armed forces chief, issued a warning saying Iran is fully prepared for confrontation and retaliation. Speaking on Monday, Mousavi said Iran's servicemen fear no enemy and are ready to deliver what he called a decisive retaliatory slap. He claimed Iran has repeatedly defeated the United States despite what he described as Washington's arrogance and aggression, according to the Iranian media report. Such characterizations represent Iranian official framing of the bilateral relationship history. Mousavi pointed to recent unrest inside Iran, describing it as a complex foreign-backed attempt to destabilize the country, according to the reporting. He said US and Israeli supported networks tried to divert economic protests but were countered by Iran's intelligence and security forces. Reflecting on nearly 5 decades since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Mousavi warned Iran is not a nation that can be swallowed, according to the report. He said reckless adversaries who refuse to learn will ultimately find themselves suffocated by Iran's power. Iranian media quoted Mousavi claiming Iran's posture has shifted and future responses would be swift and unpredictable, according to the reporting. He referenced asymmetrical and crushing military strategies as part of what he described as Iran's revised approach. Addressing threats of a naval blockade, he dismissed them as unrealistic given Iran's geography and strength, according to the reporting. The statement reflects Iranian confidence messaging about ability to resist pressure despite U.S. military positioning. Mousavi warned that any future conflict would place American forces and allies across the region at risk, according to the report. He said resistance forces would act to remove foreign presence if war were imposed on the Islamic Republic. These statements represent Iranian military messaging during a period of high tension. Whether they reflect actual capability and doctrine changes or serve primarily deterrence purposes cannot be verified from the statements alone. Referring to past conflicts, Mousavi said Iranians endured 8 years of war from 1980, according to the Iranian media reporting. The reference to the Iran-Iraq War provides historical context for Iranian messaging about resilience and resistance capacity. He claimed that during what he called the 12-day war last June, Iran thwarted what he described as a 20-year U.S. and Israeli plan, according to the report. This characterization represents Iranian official framing of recent events rather than independently verified assessment. Mousavi praised Iran's intelligence services for disrupting espionage and terrorist networks, according to the reporting. He said hostile plots had been exposed, leaving Iran's enemies defeated and humiliated. Rejecting claims of a weak Iran, Mousavi said critics are now being forced to retreat or face consequences, according to the report. The messaging emphasizes Iranian strength and determination during the current crisis period. Behind the scenes, diplomatic efforts continue. International reporting, including Reuters, says talks in Turkey are being arranged, with Steve Witkoff and Abbas Araghchi named as the lead figures. The diplomatic track proceeds alongside military incidents and heated rhetoric. Regarding the structure of the negotiations, we are examining different aspects of the issue, an Iranian official said according to reported remarks. At this stage, the countries of the region are concerned about the current situation and are sincerely trying to play a positive role, unlike the European countries which are contributing to the escalation of tensions. At this stage, various points have been discussed, and we are reviewing and finalizing the details of each step of the diplomatic process, which we hope to conclude in the coming days. The official said, according to the report, this concerns the method and the working environment. The continuation of diplomatic preparations despite Tuesday's drone incident suggests both sides may be compartmentalizing military events from negotiating efforts. Whether this separation can be maintained remains uncertain as tensions persist. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai said Tehran is at the decision-making stage regarding talks, according to his February 2nd press conference. His comments keep the door open and do not confirm specific timing, location, or participants. Baghai said regional countries have been active in good offices, while separate reports describe Turkey and others as mediators. The intensification of regional diplomatic activity suggests that neighboring countries see both urgency and opportunity in the current moment. Araghchi said Iran's defensive and missile capabilities would not be part of negotiations, according to Reuters. At the same time, he said Iran remains open to serious diplomacy as long as its legal rights and security concerns are respected, according to the reporting. The position frames Iran's nuclear program as potentially subject to negotiation, while maintaining that missile capabilities are outside the scope of any talks. This framework differs from reported U.S. preferences for comprehensive negotiations covering multiple issues. Just weeks ago, U.S. President Donald Trump said a massive armada of warships is making its way toward Iran, calling on Tehran to sign a fair and equitable nuclear deal or face consequences far worse than anything seen before, according to reporting on his statements. Iran has characterized such statements as reckless intimidation, according to Iranian official responses. The rhetorical exchange reflects the high-stakes nature of the current standoff between Washington and Tehran. Trump warned that with U.S. warships heading toward Iran, bad things would probably happen if a deal could not be reached, according to Reuters reporting on his comments. The statement pairs military positioning with diplomatic pressure. Trump, who stopped short of carrying out threats to intervene during recent events, has since demanded Tehran make nuclear concessions and sent a flotilla to its coast, according to Reuters. He said last week Iran was seriously talking, according to the reporting. Ali Larijani, described in international reporting as a senior Iranian security figure, said talks arrangements were underway, according to Reuters. The diplomatic track continues alongside military incidents, creating a complex environment for both sides. The drone shoot-down occurred in this context of simultaneous military positioning and diplomatic activity. How the incident affects ongoing negotiation efforts remains to be seen as both tracks proceed in parallel. Whether the incidents affect the timeline or prospects for negotiations remains to be seen. Both sides have reasons to continue diplomatic efforts despite military friction, but both also face domestic and strategic pressures. The gap between U.S. demands and Iranian red lines presents challenges for any diplomatic resolution. Washington reportedly seeks comprehensive changes while Tehran limits discussion to the nuclear file and sanctions relief, according to various reporting on both sides' positions. The incidents occur against the backdrop of significant U.S. military positioning in the region. Reports show additional F-15Es have deployed, and F-35As were seen transiting toward Europe. Final destination not confirmed. THAAD and Patriot air defense systems are reportedly being deployed to U.S. bases across the Middle East. The defensive preparations suggest U.S. military planners take Iranian retaliation capabilities seriously. The drone shoot-down demonstrates both U.S. capability and willingness to use force in response to perceived threats. CENTCOM's statement that de-escalatory measures were attempted first, according to the official account, frames the response as measured. Saudi officials said they will not allow their airspace to be used for strikes, and the UAE has reiterated its territory will not be used for hostile action, reports say. These positions may increase regional interest in diplomatic resolution. While U.S. officials stressed the shoot-down was defensive, the timing raises fresh concerns about miscalculation, according to various assessments of the situation. With warships already deployed and diplomacy hanging in the balance, risks remain elevated. The drone incident involved actual use of force, an F-35C destroying an Iranian drone. While framed as self-defense by CENTCOM, it represents kinetic action between U.S. and Iranian forces during a period of high tension. Whether this incident represents deliberate Iranian testing, routine operations that happen to coincide with heightened tensions, or something else cannot be determined from available information. The pattern raises questions regardless of intent. The risk of miscalculation remains elevated during periods of high tension. The incidents demonstrate how quickly situations can develop that require split-second decisions with potentially major consequences. Iran's UN mission declined to comment on the drone shoot-down incident, according to Reuters. The lack of Iranian official response leaves questions about Tehran's characterization of events unanswered. The absence of immediate Iranian comment could reflect various factors: need for internal consultation, desire to avoid escalation, or uncertainty about how to frame the incident. Without Iranian response, only the U.S. characterization is available through official channels. Iranian media reporting has not been cited in the Reuters account regarding the drone incident specifically. How Iran ultimately characterizes the shoot-down may affect perceptions and potential responses going forward. The diplomatic channel appears to remain open despite the incident. Whether Iran's silence represents de-escalation efforts or precedes a different kind of response remains unclear as the situation develops. The drone shoot-down represents a significant incident but did not trigger immediate broader escalation. It was resolved without casualties or major damage, leaving room for continued diplomacy alongside military positioning. As global powers monitor the situation, the standoff continues at elevated tension levels. Observers are watching to see whether diplomatic efforts can succeed or whether tensions will continue. The ultimate trajectory, toward escalation, toward de-escalation, or toward continued standoff with periodic incidents, depends on decisions yet to be made in Washington, Tehran, and regional capitals. The coming days may prove significant. Whether this moment leads to further incidents or to diplomatic progress remains the central question. Both outcomes remain possible as military and diplomatic tracks proceed in parallel. CENTCOM said an Iranian drone approached the USS Abraham Lincoln in nearby waters and was shot down by an F-35C in self-defense, according to Reuters. CENTCOM described the approach as aggressive while saying the drone's intent was unclear. CENTCOM said U.S. forces attempted de-escalatory steps before firing, according to the statement. No American service members were harmed during the incident, and no U.S. equipment was damaged. Iran's UN mission declined to comment on the incident, according to Reuters. Iranian officials issued parallel warnings through state media. Shamkhani, an advisor to Iran's leadership, warned any U.S. attack would trigger retaliation against Israel as well. Mousavi said Iran is fully prepared and future responses would be swift and unpredictable, according to Iranian media reporting. Diplomatic efforts continue, with talks reportedly being arranged in Turkey between Steve Witkoff and Abbas Araghchi, according to international reporting including Reuters. The world watches whether these incidents complicate diplomatic efforts or whether both sides will compartmentalize military friction from negotiating channels. The coming days may prove decisive for which track prevails.